first topic I want to talk about is data archiving. And I need to get used to the echoing effects here. We've been observing lunar occultations for a long time, and it's mainly been observed visually, and traditionally the observations have been treated as a binary type event. Lights, the stars are visible, and then it's not visible. It's an on-off type phenomenon. And things like fading. I see Ted moving the microphone around a bit. So that seems, hopefully we'll get this right. When we, in a visual context, got fading events, that tend to be an annoyance rather than something which we were interested in measuring. It needed a wide up the star, and I remember as a youngster, some occultations of Antares and seeing the component of Antares reappear some 6 seconds before Antares itself. And that was quite a spectacular event. But short step events were not well recognised or easily observable, and were not given much regard. Next slide. By the way, it's interesting, there's about a 2-second display difference between when I say something and when I hear it come back to me. So it's a bit disconcerting. Anyway, in the late 1900s there was considerable interest in discovering double stars from lunar occultations. Herald was particularly strong in this area, and many stars were claimed to be close double stars as a result of visual observations which saw the star not disappear instantaneously, but some sort of slow change in brightness. And in the Occultation newsletter there's many reports of claimed discoveries of double stars. Unfortunately, one of the things we're finding is when we record lunar occultations of those stars with video, which has better time resolution than the human eye, our experience is showing that there's an absence of any companion in over 70% of those stars. Implication is many visual occultation discoveries were caused by Fresnel diffraction and or stellar diameter, and not from double star events, which is interesting in itself. Now if we go to the next slide. Dave Dunn has mentioned atmospheric seeing is another possibility. Anyway, lunar occultations were, and asteroidal occultations for that matter, essentially all visual before 2000. The occasional professionals did photometric lunar occultations, but not many. Most were done visually. Starting around about 2000, there was a transition from visual observing through to video observing. These days, very few people do visual observing. It's almost all video. Now, when you think back to 2000 and people doing video recordings, as Bob Sandy would recall, because he was very early in this area, you record it on video and then you would play it back by hand and step through frame by frame, and it was a very tedious process. And the ability to analyse light curves in that process didn't really exist. Some people, mainly in Europe, converted each video frame to a fixed image and used standard photometrics of measure fixed images. Like a typical 30 frames and a couple of hours in this process getting a light curve out. Next slide. Next slide. Oh, hi everyone.
Just going to give a quick look at the audience, so hopefully please wait while it's around.
Can you change the slide? It's good to see everybody in the room. The important step, the critical step for light curve analysis was line moving, which was released in June 2005. That's a mere 10 years ago. It revolutionised measurement of videos and it allowed people to generate a light curve, be easily viewed and analysed. As we all know, you can measure 1 minute video recording in less than a minute and have a nice light movie had it by itself for a few years, but then Risto Pavlov released Tangra in 2009. Tangra was focused primarily on asteroid occultations, whereas line movie was originally written for Jupiter mutual events and lunar occultations. Both line moving and Tangra ultimately moved to being able to read GPS timestamps on the videos, and it made it very simple to be able to record a video with GPS inserted time, put it through a bit of software and get a light curve which was accurately time stamped. And with that, we had the ideal to be able to record light curves as distinct from recording an event. Next slide. So for 10 years now, we've been measuring light curves on a routine basis. I would guess that there's no one in that room that hasn't been regularly measuring light curves using iMovie, Tangra. And ready access to the light curves is important for detecting double stars. Remember in asteroid occultation, we're finding double stars separations down at the iliac second level, and lunar occultations is at the 10 iliac second level, and that's a field of resolution which is faint, small and speckled interferometry. We analysed gradual light curves to distinguish between stellar diameter and Fresnel diffraction. The first stellar diameter measurements were done with lunar occultations of Aldebaran years and years ago, and Antiques. And the more interesting or more recent issue is with the reset mission, the Kepler satellite, the K2 mission, where they're analysing stars being observed with that mission, which are now in the ecliptic plane. Lunar occultations in particular, because of the volume, has a capability of detecting close companions which are otherwise not known, and would affect the analysis of the K2 observations. Next slide. Given this evolution over the last 10 years, where we've gone from simple recording an occultation, the event started this time to the event ended at that time, our reporting processes, data retention, are still based on that traditional on-off nature occultation event. So we record the time the asteroidal occultation, the star disappeared at this time, and we record that it reappeared at this time. Binary events. We've been slow to recognise the value of and retain the data inherently present in an occultation like curve, which contains more information than we currently make use of. Next slide. The Vizier system, which is an international system for archiving astronomical data. It's based in France. I forget the name of the city, but it has mirror sites at, I think it's 8 or 10 mirror sites located around the world. There's 2 mirrors in the United States, one's in Hawaii. It's the global repository of astronomical data. I recently had some discussions with the people there. We archive our lunar occultation observations there and raise the issue of our light curves in our occultation work. The response from Vizier has been exceedingly positive. They are very supportive of us archiving our occultation light curves in the Vizier system. Valuable observational data which is not otherwise readily available. The light curves can be used to detect double stars, put a limit on the parameters of possible double stars. For large bright stars, such as Antares and Aldebaran, you get possibilities of measuring brightness variations across the stellar disk. I was intrigued to see a week or 2 back somebody saying that they didn't do much with the lunar occultation of Aldebaran because what was there left to discover or find out with Aldebaran? Well, get some reasonably high resolution light curves, particularly if you're in a near grazing situation for a lunar occultation, and have several light curves from a range of telescopes, and you do the right analysis, and you can map out the brightness distribution across the disk of Aldebaran. It's just a matter of recognising the capability of doing it, rather than just assuming that it's everything that is known is known. And the K2 extension of the Kepler spacecraft mission likely just to be important for that analysis. Next slide. Having got to the point where you're thinking, well, it would be nice to archive our light curves, have our data available for every day. There's a whole heap of challenges and tasks to be undertaken, and it's turning out to be a rather more complex thing to set the system up than the thought was going to be. The first you've got to sort through is what the data needs to be. Apart from light curve, it is straightforward. Needs to be accompanied by the data interpreted. I think people call this metadata or something. So you need to have date, curve, duration, identification. For the lunar occultation, you have the librations and the flow. Desirably, do something similar for asteroid occultation. It's hard to do that without combining body's observation. You need to have the observers on the page and make the observations. Slide. For any system to work sensibly, it must be easy to gather the required data. A first step in that, Kazuhisa Mishita is added functionality in library to enable light curve data copy the baseboard. That's a clipboard, so it can be pasted in important. He recognised the value of this. Tangra allows the light curve data copy onto the clipboard.
Dave, this is Ted. Dave, this connection is degrading a bit. Could you just hang up and call me back on Skype again, and we'll start with a new connection? Dave, he may have turned his speakers off. All right, we'll have to go with what we have.
Take a bit of operation. You put in the details of an occultation. Then from line moving, which is the main tool for occultations, using your light curve, stick up on there to copy it, and then in Occult you click the button that says paste. Light curve, or paste. The light curve appears there, in there, and all the other data about the image is automatically populated so that there's only a few small clicks. I've got a message here. Go here. Ted, please. Dead. I'm just reading some message from the screen about Dave, please hang up and call back. Connection is degrading. Ted, do you need me to call back? Okay, I will end call and hopefully call back quickly.
Using Skype to call us.
Long time. Hi, Dave. We're back again. We got you on speakerphone.
Okay. Back again. So, what I'm trying to do with an occult is to set up a system where it's very simple and easy to generate a report which includes the light curve which you've measured in Tangra or in iMovie, and picks up the relevant metadata as much as possible from within the occult reporting tool. Working on the basis that if the process is not simple, people aren't going to do it. And next slide. One of the issues I've got to deal with is that by building something within Occult where you have access to all the metadata, there's an assumption that users of Occult are able to send emails from Occult, and whilst that seems to be okay for most people, some people do seem to have problems setting up that, particularly if you use Gmail type accounts, the based emailing system. There are some tips around there. But the range will just come about selecting these reports, because potentially a reasonable number of reports come through. The approach I have is emailing the reports. It's set up. Would it be better to arrange for uploading of reports? But if we did an upload process, how do we control access to the upload site so that you don't get swamped by spam or whatever other horrible things people do on the internet? Next slide. At a practical level, we might have several hundred people sending in observations, and we're going to have a process which makes it easy to consolidate reports. I know no one in the room would ever send a report more than once, but reality is things like that happen. If you've got a large volume of data coming through, you've got to be able to detect duplicate reports and events. It could be issues where people send in a report and then change the start and end time slightly, so that the data looks a little bit different but it's the same event. Need to have the data arranged to facilitate access to it. That includes creating indexes to access by various star identifications and whatever, and keeping the K2 identifications and having an arrangement where the new identifications are added as the K2 fields get developed. Next slide. Then there's the practical issue of making it easy to create a version of the file to put up on Vizier. I expect that we'll be able to upload the files directly into Vizier once we get underway. You need a data file format, the tedious details of how you space the data out in the file that meets Vizier, Occult, and all. Whoever wants to use the data have sensible requirements of data format. Issues about how we make the file or the data available to us as observers, and establishing a type of time frame where we will update the data monthly, 3 monthly, yearly, and that'll depend on how frequently people put in observations. Next slide. Which is a little bit of a duplication of what I've just said, I guess, but the data format we need to allow for easy expansion of data fields in the future as we learn more about what's involved and meeting the busier requirements. And move to the final slide. In my view, archiving our observed light curves is an important and logical extension of our data recording. And perhaps I think I see Bob Sandy sitting in the screen here. Remember a couple of years ago I detected a double-starred lunar occultation, and then looking at our lunar archive, noticed that Bob had videotaped a lunar occultation that had been about 6 years earlier. Might have been more than that, 10 years earlier. So I contacted Bob and asked him to pull his recording out, and he got it analysed with iMovie, and yes, his recording showed a step event, and we were able to do a proper double star solution for separation and position angle. Just highlighting that the data is hiding in there, ready to be used. Anyway, continuing with the summary, it's important that the process be as simple as possible to everyone involved. Given the issues I've gone through, I fear it's going to take some time to get a distant system operational. And I'm hopeful that everyone will appreciate the value of archiving their observational data and be patient with implementing a suitable tool. And I'll take questions. Elizabeth Warner's asked the question of archiving in the PDS small bodies node. We do that in for the asteroidal occultations. There's two basic areas of archiving. I think astronomically, there's the PDS system, which is focused on that, well, it's a planetary data system, and there's Vizier. I'd like to see them being archived in both. That's both the asteroidal and the light curves. Compared to some of the data systems, and our data systems are quite small. Okay. David Dunham's noted that 15 boxes of photoelectric occultation observations in our basement recorded in the 50s and 60s by the US Army Map Service with about a dozen portable 10-inch telescopes. Should we hire a student to digitise them all? And they're recorded with analogue paper chart recorders. My view is if it can be done sensibly without huge cost, yes. So, it's one of those interesting things that as our technology's moved on, our ability to get more information about our data is expanded. And Richard was talking about double star observations using video, and he's working at separations greater than about 3 seconds of arc. visual observations get down to about half a second of arc. Speckle observations get down to about 0.01. Asteroidal occultations are down at the 0.001, and lunar occultations down at the 0.01. In fact, lunar occultations with our video are as good as or better than speckle, and speckle observations have an inherent 180-degree ambiguity in the position angle. You shouldn't underestimate the value of occultation-like curves for double star work. It's filling in a domain which is not covered by the traditional observations.
Unmute if you want Dave to.
Dave, I want to thank you for that presentation. That's very interesting, and I think we all look forward to seeing this completed. I want to ask you if we're satisfied that all questions have been answered, to go ahead with your next presentation, Dave, which, according to my list, is the discovery of radio source 3C273. And so whenever you're ready, go ahead and proceed with that.